Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode. We just firstly wanted to say thank you so much for all your feedback, responses, messages of support from our last pandemic racism episode. We truly appreciate everything that you've shared with us. Today's episode is on business, and we have our very first Being Brasian guest, who's Metta just down below, and we will obviously leave Metta to introduce herself properly in just a moment. But we're so excited because, like we said, it's our first ever guest, and this is sort of like a section of our Being Brasian channel called In Conversation. So hopefully you would have got that pun. And Metta, just to give a little intro, is someone who runs a very successful business called Nails by Mets, and she is an example of a multi-talented, successful female entrepreneur, and we are really truly lucky to have her on our episode today. So we just wanted Metta to really introduce herself and just tell us a bit about your business, Metta.
Hi everyone. Thank you, Deborah, for that really lovely introduction. But yeah, as Deborah said, I'm the founder of Nails by Mets, which is a mobile nail service in London. I've had the business now for 10 years, which is crazy. I started it when I was actually full-time in the corporate world, so I was a technology consultant. But I just knew that that wasn't really what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So I thought, let me start my own business. After like brainstorming a few ideas and thinking about like what I enjoyed, what I thought I could work, I sort of landed on being a mobile nail technician. And it was like around the time when nail art was starting to become a big thing in London or in the UK, like shellac and gelish and all of these new products and innovations were coming out. So I thought it was a really good time for me to sort of get involved and get trained up and to start offering these as a mobile service. Because at the time, the people who were doing mobile nail services were really like traditional and classic. They were just offering like, you know, your usual manicure, pedicure service, not really anything fun like nail art or anything like on trend or, you know, a bit more fun. So that's kind of how Nails by Mets started. And yeah, over the years, I've just been able to sort of grow the business. I've worked on Fashion Week, like London, Paris, Milan. I've worked with lots of different corporate clients, lots of different brands, like the likes of Rimmel London, like Barry M. Gosh, there's so many. Lots of different people, like lots of jewelry brands, like Swarovski, people like that. I've led Fashion Week shows. And it's basically just taken like a mind of its own, really. It's really grown from where I started, because initially it was very much just going to visit people in their homes. But now, you know, we could be doing like festivals, we could be doing exhibitions, and I will have a team. Like I could have a team of up to like 15 people working with me as part of the Nails by Mets brand, like for pop-up events and things like that. And yeah, quite a bit of my work has been published in like the likes of Vogue and Brasian and Stylists and places like that. It's grown a lot, and that's actually how I know Deborah, because Deborah is one of my clients as well. So we met a few years ago now, isn't it?
Yeah.
I feel like the time has really flown by.
It's true.
Especially obviously like with the pandemic. I mean, that's me and Nails by Mets in a nutshell. The last 6 years I've been doing Nails by Mets full time because I went on maternity leave, and I used that as an opportunity to really test the business. And I said to myself, this is the time that I grow the business. I know it sounds crazy because obviously when you're on maternity leave, you've got a new baby and a family to look after, but it was very much like, this is the time that I can use away from like the day job to see whether this can be successful, to see whether, you know, the business can survive, to see whether I could live off the business. And luckily I was able to, and I just thought, you know what, I'm just not going to go back, and I haven't, and luckily it's paid off. So
no, absolutely. And like you said, I met you as a client, and honestly I was super wowed by just her level of professionalism, and you can tell that you do things with a really high level of detail and you take pride in what you do. And yeah, I was just so impressed by Metta, and it just led on to a friendship. So yeah, I'm so grateful that you're here today. She hasn't paid me to say that.
And you know what? It's a big compliment coming from Deborah, because if you know Deborah, if she's not happy, she's not happy.
I'll say. So, Metta, how have you had to adapt during the pandemic, if at all, and especially with the lockdowns and restrictions, for example?
So it's actually been quite difficult for the beauty industry as a whole, because as you know, we are a service industry, we're very much people facing. So, you know, from March, I think it was even until July, we were not allowed to go and visit our clients. And then we were in another lockdown, I think it was like November, and then now we're in March and we've not been able to visit our clients since December. So that's a huge chunk of the year where we've not been able to work in the traditional sense. But in terms of adapting to the pandemic, I started to do what I called the Nails by Met, the nail party. And I ran this every Saturday for a number of weeks. I think it was literally from the end of March until June or July, just before we were told we could go back to work. And it was really just like a free session where people could join me on Instagram, and I would show them how to create like different nail art designs. And the purpose of that was really to show people at home, so like even my clients or just people who wanted to do their nails but didn't know how, it was just a way of showing them how to create like fun designs and things at home. But actually it turned into more nail professionals joining, and then it turned into almost like a really nice positive community where we would just motivate each other throughout this time, and you know, just have a bit of a safe space where we could chat, and where it felt that we weren't the only ones going through what we were going through. And I mean, you know, I didn't make any money off that, but it was just something that I really wanted to do, and it, you know, it helped me because it made me, number one, do my face, because I always like to show my face on camera before I started doing the design. It kept me a bit creative because every week I had to think of like a new theme. And it was just nice to actually make like new friends in the industry or in that virtual environment. And then in regards to actually, you know, Nails by Met, I got straight to work with creating like an online retail store for all of the products that I usually retail to my clients. So things like cuticle oils, hand creams, foot files, foot products and things like that, gel removal kits, because obviously when we went into lockdown, a lot of even my clients or just people in general had gel polish on, and at some point they would need to remove that. So I recorded like lots of different nail tutorials on how to do this safely and correctly. And then obviously I had my website where people could then go and visit and purchase the products if they needed to. So that was kind of like one way of trying to get a bit of income in the first few months or so, and the online store is still there. So, you know, if somebody comes to me and they're like, oh, Metta, my nails are terrible, I really need to see you. Unfortunately, it is a case of I can't come to visit you. However, these are the products that I would recommend, and you can buy them directly from me. You know, it's a nice way for people to support me and my business during this time. And also I started running different workshops as well. So I kind of went back to like my business and my marketing background, because I studied business and management, specializing in marketing. And one thing that I really wanted to do, or that I'm really passionate about, is showing other nail technicians or beauty professionals how to market themselves or how to like run their businesses. So I ran a number of free workshops on how to set up your own online store, because obviously that's what I did very quickly in the first month of lockdown. And because I come from a technical background, I personally find things like that quite easy, whereas other people don't. So I made it a mission to host these free sessions where people could join. I would literally walk them through the whole process, and then they could go away and start selling their own products. Because a lot of nail technicians, they started to create like press-on nails, or put together like care packages and things like that. And obviously having a website, it just makes it a lot more easier, rather than having to send a million DMs back and forth. You know, you can just direct your client straight there. And I did a few workshops on like using social media, on how to market your business, on how to use Canva to create like graphics and things like that. And yeah, just a number of different sessions. A lot of them I offered for free at first, like for introductory or like for beginners. But then I started to do a few like master classes, more advanced, and they were paid courses because obviously I needed to eat and pay the bills. And that was really well received, actually. So a lot of people who did join like the beginner classes would then come along to the more advanced ones, etc. So I've been able to do things like that, and also focusing a lot on content creation. Like I'm sure you ladies know all about that. Deborah knows about that. The makeup creation content that she creates, but I've been lucky enough to work with like quite a few different brands, like Nails Inc, for example, like creating tutorial videos for them, step by step, like static images. So that's been really good. And luckily, we can still work on productions, so like photo shoots and video shoots. So for a lot of the year, it was quite quiet, but it started to get a lot busier now, which is great because obviously when I can't go to see my clients, it's nice to know that photo shoots are still running and I'm still getting booked for things like that. A lot of it was about trying to pivot and take the business online. So that's where the workshops came into it. That's where the content creation focused into it. Even just focusing on like Nails by Met's content, creating tutorials for people who were watching, like how to give yourself a DIY manicure, how to remove a gel polish, how to paint your nails like a pro. Like they're quite basic tutorials, but they're things that the average person found really enjoyable because they were like, oh, actually, I'm, now I have to actually paint my nails. I'm not very good at it, but this tutorial breaks it down. It, I show you how to paint with your bad hand on your dominant hand because there's always that hand that looks perfect and the other one doesn't.
Definitely.
I'm going to need to find that tutorial.
On the Instagram. Yeah. Things like that got picked up by like the likes of stylists and like Refining 29 and different places like that. So, it felt good to like help other people.
Yeah, of course. You would think that a person whose business is based around service, you'd have had quite a quiet, relaxing time, but everything you just listed, it's like, wow, you've achieved so much during the pandemic.
It's really crazy because it's actually felt like it's been non-stop. Like I would say that at the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of people were quite stressed out about it. But I personally was like quite grateful for that time because I thought, you know what, this is the only time in the history of anything where it's like everybody is not working, everybody in the industry is at home, we can't go to visit our clients. So it was almost like a level playing field of people not working rather than just a few people or just like one person not being able to work and everybody else still working. So I just tried to make the most of that. And especially, I would say, because it was summer, I'm a very seasonal person. So when it's summertime, I want to be out in my garden, I want to be at the park, etc. So I just tried to make the most of that free time when I wasn't working to just enjoy the weather, like with the family and things like that. But then it was just like, okay, I need to get a move on. I need to actually start doing stuff because it looks like this is going to be going on for quite a while.
Definitely.
I just think it's so fascinating how you jump between things. So like you said, you had a background in marketing, and then prior to now, so I met you said about being in technology and making that leap. And I think, being from Asian culture, we can maybe all empathize about what our parents would want us to be. But like you said, following your passion, and I just think that's so great.
I mean, we're Asian here. You know how much education and following that traditional route of what is successful in the Asian community is seen as is really important. So I would say that, when I first said, I'm going to start my own business, I don't think my family really knew what that was or what that meant. And I think for a long time, they thought it was just like a hobby of doing nails. They didn't really see it as like an achievement or successful or anything like that. And it was only probably until a few years after I'd done it full time and they were like, oh, actually, she's actually quite serious about this. She's not going back to her other job and she seems to be doing okay financially, that they realized, actually, she's, this is a real thing and it's something to be proud of.
You talk about having, had this success with all these different brands that want to work with you. I think as part of Asian culture, we sometimes just keep going and then we don't really look back and reflect on what we've actually achieved because we're constantly working towards something. And I just wondered if you kind of just stepped back and gone, wow, I've achieved all these things.
I I try to. I mean, I completely relate to everything that you just said, because it's always like, okay, what am I going to do now? What's the next thing?
Yeah.
But one thing that I try to do every year is like try to enter like different industry awards. I have won awards before, which is amazing, but the actual process of doing it, you usually have to fill out like an application form. You have to like basically list your achievements of the previous year, and I always use it as an opportunity to have that checkpoint and to have that time to reflect, because sometimes I completely forget. Like, I can't remember half the stuff I've done in the last 12 months, but actually if I sat down and if I went through it month by month, I'd be like, oh yes, I did that, I did this. You know, even when Deborah was asking me to introduce the business and I was trying to think of all the different brands and people who I've worked with, my mind was blank, because you know, you just completely forget a decade of clients, you know, high profile clients and amazing brands that you've worked with. But I try to do it at least like once a year. My friend does it every December, and I try to, but then I think I've got like notebooks where it's like I started doing January, February, March, and then it just like tails off. So, but yeah, I would probably say when I enter like things like the industry awards, that's really the opportunity, but I should probably do a bit more.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
So moving on to our next question, how do you juggle being a business owner with, you know, having a family?
That's such a hard one. I mean, first of all, I have got a husband, so he does help a lot. You know, I'm really grateful that obviously he shares the workload and the responsibilities. He's very hands-on, he's very active, especially during this whole like pandemic and homeschooling, working from home. You know, we split shifts when it came to homeschooling, which was much needed, because my daughter's 6 years old and it was just very, very challenging. But what we did, my husband would do like the morning shift, and then I would do the evening shift, or not the evening shift, the afternoon shift. And then now that my daughter's back to work, he's working from home, but he will drop her in the morning, then I'll pick her up in the afternoon. So that gives me a bit of time during the day to focus on all the other bits that I need to do. It is hard. I try to maintain weekends for like family time. It's a little bit easier to do now because obviously nothing's, you know, really happening. there's no work. But you know, when I have got like my private clients, I tend to book them in the week, so like weekday evenings or during the week, you know, during the day. And the shoots tend to be during the week anyway, so that we always have that time together as a family. But also, as crazy as I am, I started another business like the other week with my daughter, called Metta London, and it's basically like a homeware company. We make homeware products basically together, and I thought that it was quite important to obviously have her involved because she loves it. We make everything together, and it's like she's understanding what it's like to run your own business. And I think obviously as somebody who does that, I wanted her to understand what I'm doing and why I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And I mean, what better way than to get her involved in the next business? And I think it helps because I always try to explain to her, you know, what it is that I'm doing. If I'm leaving in the evening, where I'm going, you know, why I work so hard, why Daddy works so hard, and things like that, just so that she's got that understanding, that knowledge of why Mum might be busy sometimes, why I'm not at home in the evening sometimes, and things like that. But it's difficult. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to say I have it completely worked out, because I don't. And I've got another one on the way, so that's going to make it even worse.
Oh wow!
So,
Congratulations!
Yeah, congrats.
So I'm adding to the madness, basically. We'll see what happens.
I was going to ask about your daughter. Obviously, she makes the homewares with you, but is she like into the nail business too? Like, does she have her own little mini nail bar, or is she like, Mum's painting? You know, like, is she really into it? Or
you know what? I think she's a bit over it now. I think it's just mummy's work. Like she used to when she was younger, she'd ask me to do her nails, and I was like really conscious. I was like, I don't want to start doing them when she's like too young, because you know, it's just a slippery slope. But if she asks me and it's like the holidays or it's the weekend, then yeah, I'll paint her nails. I have like a kiddie set for her, but she's not too bothered about it anymore, to be honest. But she does get really excited because like she does exercises on YouTube, like kiddie exercises, And she's like, Mummy, I saw you on the TV. You were doing something with Nails by Met. And like, she knows like what the business is, and like she listens to me when I'm on the phone to clients, and she's like, hello, Nails by Met. It's actually quite cute. Yeah, but I think she's a bit over it. She's a bit like, oh yeah, it's just mummy's work, whatever.
You've obviously spoken a lot about your own successes, and you know, you are award-winning nail technician and nail artist. So it would be really interesting to know who you look up to and are sort of inspired by.
Do you know what? This is a really hard question, because it's like I'm inspired by so many people, you know, from different like walks of life, sort of thing, you know, not necessarily just within my industry. Like within my industry, somebody like Charmaine Reed to me is a massive inspiration. Like she started Wah Nails, and without Wah Nails, I probably wouldn't be here, because for me, they started the whole nail art trend in the UK. You know, she's a mother, so she's also juggling motherhood. And then now she has her Beauty Stack app and the Stack World, which is like an online members club, you know, that monthly subscription, and just a lot of things that she stands for, you know, like equality. You know, she raises a lot of really important issues. She you know, she employs a lot of women, or she works with a lot of women and things like that. That is, to me, you know, super inspirational. And she knew almost like when to step away from Wah Nails and when to move on to the next thing, if that makes sense. So she's a massive inspiration to me, like even today with everything that she does. Like she's basically moved into technology, which I think is fantastic. And then I look at people like, you know, like my mum, and obviously our worlds are completely different, and I'm pretty sure she doesn't fully understand my life or what I do and the way I do it, because she's very traditional Asian. But now being a mother, like I can fully appreciate that she brought up like me and my sister, and she looked after us like fully for about 5 years. Like, you know, like she was a full-time mum, and obviously my dad was there, but he was working. And it's like stuff like that is very inspirational to me. Like any mum who's able to do that and give up their own career and their own, you know, their own life basically to look after their children, that's very inspirational to me. Just because obviously I have got a child, you know, I've got a daughter and I've got another one on the way, and it's just like I personally couldn't do that. So for somebody who can do that, that is super, super inspirational to me. And then I think on a bigger scale, like one of my biggest inspirations is Serena Williams, because obviously she's just like an incredible sports person, you know, and now she's a mother as well. And, you know, knowing that she went to, I can't remember what competition it was, but knowing that she went back to training and to compete so soon after she had her daughter, and just seeing like all of the challenges that she goes through as a woman, as a Black woman, and you know, all of these barriers, I'm just like so in awe of this woman. She's like one of my dream clients. I'm like, yes, Serena, call me when you come over for Wimbledon. So yeah, I mean, there are a lot more people, but I would probably say that they were like my top, you know, when I think of people who I'm inspired by or who I kind of aspire to be.
You know, you talked about how Serena has struggled being in that profession of being in tennis and being Black. In the same way, has your ethnicity, do you think, had an effect on your career, and in what way?
So actually, I just posted something about this stuff on Instagram yesterday, because in the nail and beauty industry, a lot of the time people associate like Chinese nail shops or like Vietnamese nail bars with, you know, like low standards. You know, people say things like chop shop or like Chinese shop and things like that. And it's just like, I can't really think of any other industry that does that. Sometimes when people see me on the face of me, they might think, oh, you know, not sure whether she's going to be that good or whatever. And sometimes even people might call me and they'll be like, oh, you know, I went to this Chinese shop, and they'll be slagging off the nail technician or whoever. And then it's just really awkward, because it's like, dude, I'm actually Asian myself. At the beginning of my career, I was really lucky because I trained with somebody called Anna Lee, and she's actually, her heritage is Chinese, and she did a lot of work in the industry to try to educate people on this and to push forward like Southeast Asian or Asian nail technicians. And she used to write like columns in magazine, which is like a UK-wide industry magazine. So I think things like that help to break those barriers of being Asian and being seen as like either substandard. So now I think a lot of people, regardless of whether they're Asian or not, know not to say things like chop shop or like use these derogatory terms, because the term, if you're talking about, you know, a salon that is not up to standard, is non-service salon, NSS, rather than saying, oh, you know, chop shop or whatever, because not every non-standard salon is owned by somebody who's Asian. You know, it's not specific to a race. There are bad salons owned by many different people from many different backgrounds, you know. For me, I choose to focus just more on like my work. You know, I'm not afraid to put my face on Instagram. If somebody doesn't want to book me because I'm Asian, that's their loss, you know, that's up to them. I do find it really strange when people say things to me, to my face, about, you know, Asian owned stores or like other Asian nail professionals in a bad way, because it's like, can you not see that I'm also Asian? Like, it's like, I don't understand that personally, but I just try to use it as an educational point. Like, I just try to educate them and say, you know, it's not just these salons that are owned by Vietnamese or Chinese or whatever. And a lot of the time it's like, oh, how do you know that they're actually, you know, how do you know they're Chinese? Because sometimes they might not be. So I think it's just trying to educate people. But generally speaking, I don't feel like that's my biggest barrier in the industry. But I feel like it's because I've had the support of people like Amra, who've really pushed me and pushed me forward. They've pushed my profile, and I'm at a stage in my career where people know who I am, if that makes sense. So it's not like,
and they respect you.
They don't see my race, if that makes sense, which I guess is a good and a bad thing, because it's almost like, as I said, you know, people don't think that I'm maybe Asian in terms of when they're talking to me and they're being derogatory about like my other Asian peers, etc. But yeah, it's a difficult one. I mean, being a female, I think the industry is more dominated by females, so I don't necessarily feel that that is a big hindrance. However, I do notice that sometimes, like, if I'm at an event or something like that, people don't necessarily see me as the person who's like in charge. And I don't know whether that's because I'm Asian or because I'm a woman, but I was just a bit like, yeah, not feeling that. So, you know, make it a point to like dress like a boss so that people know that it's me and it's not the person next to me who might be older or who might be like a different race or whatever, you know, just so that they know. As you know, there's a lot of Asians within the industry. There's a lot of Vietnamese people in the industry. There's a lot of, you know, Chinese. And I think depending on what part of the country you're from, you also get different points of views, if that makes sense. And I think because I'm in London, and we're in London, it's very multicultural, there's still going to be some stereotypes, but it's not as bad as somewhere else in the country where maybe it's not as diverse.
Definitely.
That's great.
Definitely. I mean, I can relate to you about the point you made about, because I've been in managerial roles, as you know, and exactly the same thing. People don't always assume that I'm the person who's the leader or leading the event, and it's sort of like, hello. So I have to put, you know, a sign on my head that says boss.
And I don't know whether that's just because the general mannerism of maybe like just me being a bit stereotypical of Asians might be a bit quieter than other people, but being quiet doesn't necessarily mean like not as good or not as up to scratch or not the boss. You know, you don't have to be loud, you don't have to be overly in somebody's face to be in charge.
Definitely. Preach.
We're so excited that Metta is our first guest, and one thing that we want to do for all our guests is ask them 3 fun questions. So our first question for you, Metta, is, can you tell us something about your country?
So Laos is completely landlocked. So it's bordered by Vietnam, China, Cambodia, Myanmar, and you've got the Mekong River, which flows and runs through it. But if you travel to the very south of Laos, there are wild dolphins, and there are like millions of tiny islands, which are called like the 1,000 Islands. So I think that's something that not everybody realise this. I mean, I didn't even know until like maybe a few years ago when I went, and I was like, oh, I really want to go there and see that. But yeah, Laos is very much known for like more its waterfalls rather than its beaches. Like it's not like Thailand. You know, Thailand is known for like these beautiful beaches, it's by the sea. Laos isn't like that. It's a bit more rugged. It's a bit more on the beaten path or on the beaten track.
And when was the last time you visited?
I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago. One of my close cousins got married in Laos, so it was you know, the perfect opportunity to go back. And it was amazing. It was really, really fun. And we went to go and visit some of the caves, and there was like a natural beach there, but it was like a beach with the River Mekong, so not like, you know, your traditional, this is the ocean. But it was really nice to see because I hadn't seen that before in Laos, so I was like, oh, wow.
When you were talking about the beaches in Thailand, Amra's obviously from, well, her ethnicity is Thai, so she's always trying to convince me and Tracy to go to Thailand.
You should have like a Being Brasian summit out there or something.
That'd be nice.
I'd love that.
Yes.
On the beach.
Oh, well, you're an inaugural guest, so absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so it's an important one. Rice or noodles?
Noodles, hands down.
Oh, that was easy.
Yeah, noodles, unless it's like sweet sticky rice with mango.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Or it's noodles every time.
The last question is, what advice would you give your younger self?
This one's a hard one. I think I'd probably say just go for it. Just don't be afraid, because you know, everything that you do, there is always going to be an aspect of fear, but it's almost like, what's the worst that could happen? And I have sat on so many ideas and so many things because I've been worried about even what people think, or you know, whether it's going to be successful. And then I've seen somebody else go and do it, and I've been like, well, that's really annoying, because that could have been me. Or you know, you almost missed the boat. So, and that's one thing with this new business, Metta London. I actually sat on this idea for a long time, and then one day I was just like, let's just do it. So I said to Mila, I was like, oh, Mila, what do you think? Should we set up this business? She was like, yeah. So I was like, okay. And then we just launched it.
Thank you very much, Metta, for joining us. It's been amazing listening to how you started your business to where you are now and to all your achievements. So in our next episode of Being Brasian, join us as we discuss the world of Asian representation within the media. We'll look at TV shows, film, theatre and music, and look at how Asians are being represented, looking at stories being told, stereotypes and Asian role models in the industry. We would love to hear any thoughts you may have. Please feel free to post questions and your thoughts around this topic on all our channels.
And again, thank you so much, Metta, for joining us. Really appreciate your time, and just want to say we will add all the links down below of Metta's handles, including her new exciting business and venture. And please feel free to ask Metta some questions directly on her site, and please show her some much deserved love. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.